Hey guys, welcome to Valuable Coaching today. We got a great physical education interview today with Coach Scooter Bloom, Mr. Scooter Bloom, who's now actually a dean of students, but was before a physical education teacher. Um, he's been able to have the experience of working with a couple different student teachers and knows the importance of that. And so today he's going to tell us a lot about that and also go into how he then designed the lessons and worked with those student teachers in order to help provide them with some quality experience. And then we'll talk a little bit at the end about what his interview is tomorrow. So let's go ahead and jump right into the interview.
Valuable physical education today. We have our guest Scooter Bloom here, and Kevin is going to tell us a little bit about him, and then he'll finish off introducing himself.
Yeah, it's my pleasure to introduce to you Coach Scooter Bloom. He's been a coach in the San Joaquin, Stockton area for quite some time as a physical education teacher. He used to teach at Langston Hughes and Port City Academy. He's also worked over at Ben Holt, which is a charter school that we'll talk to him about. Recently, he has become a dean of students in the Aspire School charter school system. And it's great to have you on, Coach Scooter. And I always remember meeting you at the University of Pacific. It was awesome, and you were always good to me. So thanks for coming on the show.
Absolutely, it's great to be here with some fellow Tigers for sure. Like you said, Bloom, I'm from Stockton, California, born and raised. Been involved in education now. It's my 12th school year, just working for Aspire Public Schools, which is a charter program that we have out here in the Valley. My first 10 years, I taught PE at a variety of schools, all at the middle school level, a little bit of elementary. But the last 2 years, like you said, I've been involved in administration as the dean of students. And I've been coaching high school basketball for, I don't know, 15, 16 years. And that's kind of what led me into teaching and teaching PE. And so it's great to be here. Could share some stories about old Kevin Pratte, but I don't think those would be appropriate for your show.
Thank you, Coach Bloom. Yeah, no, Scooter and I, we went to college together, as you know, Miles is a former Tiger, and that kind of leads me to our next phase is, where I met Coach Scooter is he was our RA, and when I was graduating from the University of Pacific, I needed to get a teacher to be my mentor, and I was going to be a student teacher. And I had a good, successful relationship with Coach Bloom. And I kind of wanted to talk to you a little bit about that for our viewers, that are going to want to be PE teachers. What's it like having a student teacher? What is one of the biggest advantages you think as a teacher? And can you briefly discuss that?
Yeah. I think I've had a couple of student teachers. You're not the only one I've had. But I think there's a couple good things. I think one of the biggest advantages is it lets you try out actually as a teacher some things that maybe you wouldn't be able to do, like obviously like co-teaching model kind of stuff. But I think it's fun to take a step back and watch somebody else do it. I think a lot of people that get into teaching PE have a passion for sports, and some kind of background, right? So Kevin and you and the other young lady I had as my student teacher, she was had coached soccer. So there's some kind of coaching and teaching background already there, and you actually get to pick up and learn some things that maybe you wouldn't know how to do, or different sports. I'm not a volleyball guy, but I think watching you teach volleyball to my class, I learned a lot that I continued for all those years after, whether it was drills or skill development things. So I think there's a real advantage, like personally, to watch, somebody else teach. I think, having a student teacher, I mean, it just, I don't know. For me, both times I did, it was just a lot of fun because I think some people get in, I think there's a lot of these teachers I observed over the years that were PE teachers because they coached on the football team, and they were just there to collect their paycheck as a teacher, but they're really there to coach. And so that was kind of my experience growing up. That was kind of what I had when I was in high school. But when you've talked to people that have actually studied the proper way to teach PE and how to break down skills, it makes it a lot more fun, and you can have a lot more. I think there's just like a lot more you can do in your class. Obviously, when you have someone else there, and it's fun to just kind of watch them grow. And I've kept in touch with obviously you and the other person as well. And it's great. Share resources and just kind of, it's fun for the kids too, because then they're not hearing one voice all the time. And when we know how that it goes as teachers and coaches, that, a lot of times, the kids get sick and tired of hearing from you. And so it does, it kind of changes it up, changes pace, allows you to do some different things, which is a lot of fun. And what was cool is the 2 times I experienced, obviously, Kevin and you and I, and then there was Mr. Williams. He was there too. And then at my other school, we had Mr. Merritt, who was this great PE teacher. And so when you have 3 people, and then even though there's 2 classes of kids, it allows us to do a lot of interesting things and groups and break things down in smaller and really teach kids. And so that was a lot of fun for me.
Yeah. Do you think that's something that, schools and school districts should put a little bit more time and effort into cultivating maybe a better PE model that allows at least certain days for there to be multiple teachers? Because I know I was at school for 10 years where I was the only teacher. And like you said, as much as I tried to make it fun and a lot of those kids enjoyed stuff, I think there were certain days where they were just like so tired of hearing from just me. And I know Kevin, where he's working, there's a lot of PE teachers within their district, but there's, 1 at each school. Do you think there's some kind of way to make that work where you can get, 2 teachers out on the blacktop at the same time, maybe with a couple classes to mix it up and like you said, let them see what other ideas are out there?
I definitely think that's that could be really advantageous for everybody, the teachers and the kids. Unfortunately, I've never experienced anything but that. So everywhere I've been there's always been multiple classes, there's always been multiple teachers, and we've always got along. But I think it could. I think it's good for the kids. It's good for the teachers. I remember a couple years ago we tried something completely off the wall because they were pulling kids from our class for intervention, which often happens for PE. And so we're having these smaller groups of kids. And so we tried some things where we actually took mixed the classes and had some go inside with one teacher and do some learning about health or whatever, learn about the body, that kind of stuff. And one stay outside. So they're in groups of 20 to 24. That was awesome. Yeah. But they got to experience different things and different, and sometimes as a teacher, you guys know this is you get those 2 or 3 kids in the same class that just feed off each other, and you can kind of split them up on a certain day or for a certain activity. It can really kind of alleviate a lot of stress for a lot of people. So, I mean, if districts could prioritize that, or schools, like I said, I've never really experienced anything but, which was awesome for me. Very fortunate. So definitely. And I think one thing I want to talk about student teaching. So I didn't do student teaching. I went straight in and did as an intern. And so and as much as I thought I was ready to teach, I think I wouldn't say it was a huge mistake, but I remember I got about, I don't know, a quarter in, and we have a 2-week break. So I got to our fall break and I was ready to hang them up because it was hard because it wasn't what I expected, because I don't, honestly, as much as I love UOP and I enjoyed their education program, I enjoyed their PE program, they don't teach you about classroom management. And that's the number one thing I'd say that you got to be able to learn is how to manage a class. Because if you don't, as you guys know, they can get away from you fast. So I was fortunate enough to work with a guy who didn't really know how to teach PE, but he knew classroom management, and I learned a lot from him just on how to manage the class. So I think that's something that's really important. And I think my eyes were big, and I thought I was obviously a little cocky and thought I could do it, and I was ready to make money. But I really wish I would have done student teaching with someone that had some experience, because it made it the transition a lot. It probably would have made the transition a lot smoother.
Yeah, it's interesting you talk about student teaching, and for all you teachers and student teachers out there listening, I think anytime a physical education teacher can bring on a student teacher, I think it just brings credibility to our department. And sometimes our department is just ourselves at an elementary, and it creates a little bit of a buzz. There's a new person on campus. And one of the reasons I'm asking this to you, Coach Scooter, because I know that there's probably some teachers listening that, this is their first semester coming up that they're going to have a student teacher. And I'm curious, what was your philosophy going into it? Because I thought you did a really good job. Did you throw the student teacher right in the fire? Did you model how to do it for a while? And then how did you, in a sense, as their mentor, hold them accountable and give them constructive criticism? How did you do all that stuff?
Yeah. So I'm just trying to think back, man, Kevin, this was a long time ago we did this. So I don't really remember what I did with you, to be honest.
Well,
I want to say I just threw you out there. And
if you may, though, you did for the first 2 weeks. You were in an interesting situation because you were becoming an athletic director.
Okay, I kind of remember.
And you were really good at that. And for the first 2 weeks, I shadowed you.
Yeah, I remember now.
You did a unit that you're like, are you comfortable with basketball, Kevin? You're like, and I'm like, I can do basketball. And you're like, okay, I'm going to do the first 2 weeks. I'm going to model it for you. And it was cool because I felt you did like a hybrid. You modeled it, but then you threw me in the fire, So
I kind of remember. I kind of remember what it's like, kind of co-teaching some morning classes, and then in the afternoon you would kind of take control. So I do remember that, and I remember the second time I got the student teacher on. They had to do 2 different placements, so they had to do an elementary and a secondary. And so she was coming off of her elementary placement, and she was like ready to go. And so she like just wanted to go. But I think what's really important is to really build a relationship with that student teacher, right? Or if you're the person coming in, you really got to kind of connect with that person and plan with that person, plan lessons with that person, make sure you're on the same page. So when you go to give that constructive feedback, there's some kind of relationship there, right? Because it's hard. And I think it really just depends on who the person is, right? Like you're coming in brand new, so you wanted to shadow me for a little bit, watch how I did it, then kind of go on your own. Like I said, this other one had already done that, and she was just ready to go. So, hey, if that's what you're comfortable, but I think just making sure that's, there's that strong relationship there really helps open up to feedback and criticism or whatever it is. But also you got to have it the other way too. When they're doing something well, you got to really praise them. You got to, and I remember that, there's things I think what I learned too is like with younger kids, there's things like kids will marvel at. So Kevin could go up and dunk a basketball. I can't even touch the net. So like, he had like more street cred with the kids because he's had a little bit of athleticism where me, not so much. So, I mean, I think there's, taking away and pointing out a lot of the positives when you're working with the student teacher is really important, because then they're going to be open to if all it is criticism. I mean, after a while, they're like the kids. Like, I'm tired of hearing from you. So got to have a nice balance.
Yeah. What's maybe one tip you could give, again, either people who are becoming student teachers or even teachers like ourselves, that goes back to that class management? Because like you said, I think that is one thing that's kind of missed. I think professors just think, if you're good at teaching the sports and evaluating them, then the class management part kind of takes care of itself. They'll be having fun, or some of them may not have even taught a whole lot out there. But what's something that you did that really worked well for you in terms of class management?
Right. And I think where sometimes the big miss comes in is when we coach, when we coach a sport, we're coaching kids that want to be there, right? Like they want to be at volleyball practice, they want to be at basketball practice, so they're ready to listen. Teaching PE is different. You got half your kids that don't even want to do anything, athletically. They just want to especially now, I've only taught middle school. So a lot of changes are happening in middle school. So I think something that's really important when it comes to classroom management is you got to be firm and you got to be very explicit in your directions. Okay. And I think when you're a new teacher, it's observing a PE teacher or observing any teacher on campus, because I've turned, PE teachers to go watch the math teacher, or the science teacher, go watch our English teacher, because they have really good classroom management. And you have to teach the kids, right? Just because you say line up doesn't mean they're going to line up. And it takes like the first 2 weeks when you build culture in your classroom, when you have expectations and you build those relationships, and it's all you kind of just all you're doing all you should really be doing for the first couple of weeks is teaching classroom management, in my opinion. I mean, you're going to obviously mix in some lessons and fun, but just to kind of get to know you. And once I kind of learned that, and I saw that from other teachers, because I went and watched one of our math teachers, and he was always just really, really good about, how he controlled the class. Because I was out there like, all right, hey, we're going to do this. And the kids are just talking over me, and they're not listening. Hey, when are we going to do this? When are we going to do that? And it's like, whoa. And so I think going in and seeing it done well is really important. And then taking the time in the first couple of weeks to establish routines, procedures. I mean, that's kind of where my strong suit was after a while was, all right, this was the routine, this was the procedure, the kids knew the expectations, and then everything else kind of falls in place, if you will.
Yeah.
Hey, that was some great insight today from Coach Scooter Bloom there. He really showed, how valuable student teaching is. He told us a little bit about how he didn't actually go through student teaching and went straight to an internship. And, with that, he was really expected just to jump right into it and know what he was doing. Whereas if you have that ability to be a student teacher, you have the time to learn and grow, and you have somebody there mentoring you. And, then also as a physical education teacher, if you've been there a long time, if you have the ability to take on a student teacher, it can really benefit not only that student teacher by you passing on your knowledge, but it also can help you grow, because you have another set of eyes out there, and you're able to kind of work with them, help them through some things, and you may find some things that you can improve upon during that time, or they may ask you some tough questions that you need to go search the answers for. So, great part of the interview today. We have the second half coming up tomorrow, and tomorrow's is extremely valuable if you were going to be searching for a job. And I know we touched on this last week, kind of from the interviewee. Sorry, from the interview. Yeah, the interviewee. And got their perspective on what they did that was successful. But tomorrow you really get to see what you're going to get from the interviewer. Coach Scooter now, is, again, being a dean of students, is sitting in on a lot of interviews, and so he knows what it takes to stand out amongst a lot of candidates. So tomorrow's interview is going to be extremely important if you're out there and searching to find out how you can set yourself apart from the eyes of a principal or a dean of students. So anyways, look forward to sharing that with you guys tomorrow. I want to thank our sponsor, One Stone Apparel. They do great physical education clothes. They made us this great polo for valuable coaching, and they do awesome vocabulary tees, perfect for physical education. They got great words on the back. You can customize them. Great artwork, easy to work with. Dave at One Stone Apparel. Check them out, onestoneapparel.com.